It was an accident, I swear. Look, I really did intend to only pick up one Xbox for reasons, but I show up and the guy's like, do you pick these things up often? And I'm like, well, I guess, kind of. And he says, well, I've actually got a bunch in the back. We met at his like storage unit or whatever. And he said he'd sell them to me for like $10 each. And I figured even for parts, they're probably worth more than $10 each, right? So how could I go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, for $60, let's see how good of a deal I got. Now, I'll number these so they don't get confusing. Xbox One, not to be confused, didn't work. Go figure, it was completely dead, no sign of life whatsoever. I won't know more until I open it up, and interestingly, most of these have never been opened before. With the exception of one, all of their warranty stickers are still intact. On the one hand, that's good, we don't have to worry about anyone having rummaged around inside, but on the other hand, the Xbox is full of leaky capacitors now, which are kind of ticking time bombs for these things. It's a little concerning if those things still haven't been removed. We'll have to look into that a little later on. But for now, let's check out the rest of the Xboxes. Xbox 2, I'm just glad we don't have 360 of them. This one worked perfectly. Seriously, I mean, the drive belt does need replacing. You have to give it a bit of a whack before the tray actually comes out. But other than that, it starts up, boots games, nothing really wrong with it at all. Well, except for the fact that it's 1.6, which means it's completely worthless.
What a shame.
Xbox number 3 also just worked. Loads up, boots games and all. In fact, it doesn't even have a drive belt issue. And it's a 1.2, which means unlike the 1.6, you can flash the BIOS directly without a mod chip. I mean, even I can't complain about these results. Getting 2 working Xboxes out of this deal is already pretty damn good. Xbox number 4 exhibited probably the most common issue with Xboxes today. Console boots fine, DVD drive doesn't read discs. It's just a reality of optical drives that are mostly over 20 years old at this point. Now, I come at this from the perspective of a modder who always plays games off the hard drive, so the DVD drive for me is more or less irrelevant. But let's be honest, not everyone feels that way, so this probably does reduce the resale value a little bit. Xbox number 5 gave me an error number 7, dead hard drive. The Xbox's hard drive is very much mandatory for its operation, even or perhaps especially from a modding standpoint. Not to worry though, from a modding standpoint, the hard drive is fairly replaceable. Any standard IDE drive will work, or any SATA drive with an adapter, because IDE drives are getting pretty rare. That being said, we do need to do some work on the motherboard to get the console's unique hard drive key. We can get that by either using a device to read the EEPROM, or we can just install a mod chip so we no longer need the hard drive key. Finally, Xbox number 6, with arguably the toughest issue, besides just not powering on at all. Error number 12. This is another DVD drive failure, yet a somewhat more fatal one. This time it isn't just the usual bad laser or motor that would make it unable to read discs. Error 12 means the Xbox can't even communicate with the drive to begin with. This is a tougher thing to repair because unlike the hard drive, the DVD drive is somewhat non-standard. It's got this proprietary 12-pin plug on the back. Me personally though, this is another case where I'd be inclined to just hard mod it so it no longer cares about the DVD drive. Anyway, that's it. Overall, not a bad haul. A pretty wide range of working states, but only one that isn't a simple soft or hard mod away from being able to play games again. I did spend a couple of hours on the dead 1.0 Xbox, but didn't get very far. At first I was thinking CPU capacitors, but I had a look and they seemed fine. I did find something very bizarre though. When I plugged it in, the power supply immediately started sparking. Well, that can't be good. I took it out and found it was scorched to hell. The plug had even managed to rip its own pad off the PCB. I have no idea how that happened. I looked around briefly for a short on the power supply, but couldn't really see anything. Luckily, I did have a replacement power supply for this exact version. I was actually trying to get a later version's power supply which has a completely different plug, but the seller lied to me and I got this instead. By the time I realized it was too late to return it, but hey, I guess it'll come in handy here. I swapped it in and the Xbox powered up. And as you can see, I thought it was all good now, but if you look closely, it's actually boot looping. Ignore the green and orange flashing, that just means the AV cable isn't plugged in, but you can see it turning on and off and on and off again. This is known as the infamous triple boot because after the third time, it just gives up and flashes red and green to indicate a problem. Again, you can't see that because the lack of AV cable takes priority. I decided to do some general maintenance just so the board wouldn't be as gross to handle. I cleaned out all the case pieces, replaced the thermal paste on the CPU and GPU, and removed the clock capacitor. At first glance, I thought the clock capacitor was okay because it wasn't visibly bulging or anything, but after removing it, I realized it had indeed leaked all over the board. Silly capacitor, that's what the toilet is for. I'm now thinking this is the most likely cause of the failure. Capacitor fluid is conductive and corrosive. Naturally, I cleaned the board thoroughly with alcohol, Q-tips, and later a toothbrush, but sadly it made no difference. I pored over the board trying to find any corroded traces or joints, and even reflowed a few that looked a little sus, but no matter what I did, it just kept flashing red and green. Unfortunately, this triple boot frag is a really tough error to solve. It basically just means general hardware failure, so it's about as non-specific as it gets. Often when people run into it, it's because they installed a mod chip wrong, but of course here, there's no mod chip. This is the first time anyone's opened it up. I did in fact try installing a mod chip just in case there was something wrong with the BIOS flash chip, which is why this pin header appeared halfway through the video, but it didn't make a difference either. While I have a sneaking suspicion it's something to do with that leaking clock capacitor, there's also a chance that whatever fried the power supply also might have fried a critical component like the CPU or GPU, which would be a very difficult thing to fix. Even if it was just capacitor fluid, if it had corroded something under the MCPX, I'm not sure I have the tools to repair that either, and unfortunately I was out of time for trying to fix this. I may take another look at this later, but it may be best, as unsatisfying as it is, to treat this as a parts machine. But hey, I still got 5 Xboxes that either work or should be decently easy to fix out of the deal, so it's hard not to see that as a win. In the meantime, let me know in the comments if you found any surprisingly good deals lately, and either way, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys.